Jack, are you on mute?
Ooh, how about now? You guys got me?
Yeah.
There we go. I was like,
There we
I
go.
thought I was the only one, but then Loki pinged me,
Yeah.
and I was like,
Yeah, apparently he's still sleepy on the 2nd of January. Look, this is all me just proving I'm not AI. Like, if this show went flawlessly at this point, I think we'd all be a little curious. So today, GM, everybody, welcome to the KIP Protocol show. We're talking AI today, the Web3 base layer for AI, KIP winner of the 2023 Chainlink Hackathon. We've got Julian and Jen, the co-founders of KIP, with us today, and we've got Loki and Jordan, the CMO of PublicAI. Cannot wait to dive into the conversation today. It's going to be an absolute banger. We're talking Deepseek. We're talking the 5th show. And get the likes, get the retweets out as we dive into the conversation. Jen, mic over to you.
Oh, cheers. Nice to be here as always. So yeah, I'll do a sort of the quick round of intros. So Loki I persuaded him to come on because normally he's not a front of house guy. He's one of our top AI developers, and he's going to come in and kind of simplify Deepseek down for the likes of us, basically. And then we also have Jordan, who I will leave to introduce himself. Oh, and the dog is back. Hooray.
hey, pup. Yeah, that's perfectly on vibe for what PublicAI is up to right now. We've got a campaign live where we're rewarding people for collecting dog nose photos. So good to see another pup. Yeah, I'm Jordan, and I am co-founder and CMO at PublicAI. Essentially, what we do is we reward experts to go source, verify, and apply data for AI. And what that allows for is greater diversity than you can get with any other data providers. We do all of that with a Web3 pipeline. So we use kind of classic Web3 technology like staking and payment rails. But we've got new applications for it that allow us to do all this AI data gathering. So that's the long and short of PublicAI. Excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for coming on. Yeah, Julian, we were saying last week you're no longer the cutest one here now that now you have competition.
I'll find out where Jack lives and I'll kill that dog. I didn't say that.
Did not think we were going there this early in the show, but yeah.
No, there is murder. I'm always if I'm here, I'm the color commentator. I'm the show master. So there will be murder on this show. We'll be talking about murder. Oh, allegedly, or suspected. We'll be talking about global geopolitics between the major AI powers. We'll be talking about money making shenanigans in crypto. in the manifestation of AI agents. So yeah, what more could you want from a podcast in crypto, right? From the
Very
best
good point.
AI show in crypto, right? We've got it all. Next one we'll talk about like the sexy stuff, but this I think today's lineup not enough time. Yeah.
Yeah.
When we talk about it, it's always sexy. So yeah. Well, anyway, yeah, let's get straight into it. So I'm gonna do a quick tour of the general AI news, or the AI news in general, not the general AI news. But so yeah, first thing that we have that has been kind of causing a ruckus in the sector over the holidays is the big scandal that Julian was kind of hinting to just now, which is the story about the death of Suchir Balaji, who was an OAI coder and developer, and actually a whistleblower. So he was going to be one of the witnesses in a trial that is going on soon about OpenAI illegally using data, and he was kind of confirming, yeah, OpenAI has been using data illegally, and he was publishing posts about it on his blog and so on. And then all of a sudden he shows up dead, and the Los Angeles police say it's a suicide. And now we actually have his mum on Twitter. So yeah, I'm just gonna share the tweet that she posted saying that they hired a private investigator, and the private autopsy that they did didn't confirm the cause of death stated. The apartment was ransacked, which everyone's kind of shocked by, and they're actually saying that this was a murder, and it's been covered up due to lobbying locally in San Francisco. So this post actually got community noted all to hell. You can't see the community notes here, but yeah, there were a lot of them all saying, "Oh, there's no proof that it's actually her," and so on and so forth. And they seem to have disappeared, so I guess it apparently is her. So the AI sector has kind of been going back and forth on this. Some people have been saying, "Yeah, I wouldn't put it past OpenAI," but then others have been actually saying, well, this guy was just one of 12 witnesses, and he was also under a lot of actual pressure. You know, if you're in AI and you're seen to be going against just total freedom of training, then yeah, a lot of other people in the sector are going to be not your biggest fans. Also, it has to be said, I've seen people saying in the group chats that if this had been OpenAI, Sam Altman would definitely have teased it with a bitchy little tweet. So yeah, maybe it isn't. In other kind of less grim areas, we have Gemini 2.0 Flash. So the new Google DeepMind model, which has been absolutely crushing it in the, and I will end my screen share, absolutely crushing it in the benchmarks, and in Chatbot Arena it's hitting #1 in all categories, and people kind of didn't notice because Deepseek is capturing all the attention. So Deepseek, the Chinese open source model that kind of came out of nowhere, all this year you've had people who are in AI saying this is the coming thing, this is absolutely going to crush it, we love it so much, they are fanboys to the max. And despite the fact that the Gemini 2.0 Flash has come out and just crushed the benchmarks, DeepSeek has a new model out that keeps telling people that it's OpenAI. So it's had a lot of criticism for that, and it's had a lot of criticism as well for being kind of, it's Chinese coded to a degree. So we've been using this all year, and yeah, you ask it questions about the Communist Party, it's not going to be super inclined to answer. But then if you ask GPT questions about racism and sexism, it kind of evades those as well. So every model is political in a different way. But anyway, yeah, Flash is out, but most of the attention within the sector has actually been on DeepSeek, and that includes attention from OpenAI. So we've had Sam Altman on Twitter saying very snobbily, it's relatively easy to copy something that you know works. It's extremely hard to do something new, risky, and difficult when you don't know it will work. Blah, blah, blah. And then someone immediately came back under this and said, well, didn't you basically do the same thing with the GPT models and the attention is all you need paper, which they absolutely did. So yeah, there's been a bit of back and forth over this. But that is kind of the main stories that have been going on. in AI this past week, which we're going to go into a bit more deeply later on. So we're going to go into the deep background of Deepseek. But before that, Julian is going to give a roundup of the DAI news, so news specific to our sector.
Yes, indeed. Thanks, Jen. I thought tactfully covered. I think inappropriate jokes aside, I think AI covers or affects so many things, so many levels of our life, our society, how our societies are structured, that it inevitably would, move a lot of people's cheese. Okay, which whether it's a murder or not, that's up to the investigating authorities, but it touches a lot of people's cheese, right? It moves a lot of existing entrenched interests. It creates new ones, and the fight is between nations, right, also. So in the background of what we're about to cover, which is a lot more, I would say, lighthearted and fun, and maybe profitable, although not financial advice, is AI does affect everything. It has just changed almost everything that we've built our systems of commerce, our systems of living over the years. Okay, so now to decentralized AI. The rage is obviously, I mean, AI agents are soaking up all the attention. So this week in decentralized AI, we will be just covering a few milestones that will hit. Jen, do you mind? Have you shared it yet? Just let me take a quick look. Yes, I think it can be summarized very quickly. I'll try to keep this short. Okay, so two of the leading AI agent protocols and marketplaces have reached all-time highs. They're just freaking killing it. I'm personally very happy about it because we were quite early into many of these protocols. So and here maybe I'll just give a quick shout out to Sammy.mocha and also 0x Jeff from another writes very, very good threads, very, very good way to keep yourself updated on the space.
Sammy's a good
And
friend. He is a fellow Brit as well, so loved seeing him hit your guys' timeline as well.
yeah, totally. So virtuals are now at 5 billion. I mean, it's still smaller than Bitensor, right? But I think maybe we'll move on to the next suite. I mean, they're pretty much the same point. Next one would be that's waifu page 2. Maybe we'll go to the next tweet. Okay, that's for Moemate. Okay, I couldn't make it. So let me see that. Okay, so sorry for the lack of marketing collateral, but three big pieces of news, right? Or things to look out for. One, virtuals and AI 16Z both hit new highs, and I think that's really reflective of the attention, right? So what meme coins have been really, really effective. AI meme coins or AI agent coins or AI agent coins personified as meme coins, whatever you want to call it. They have been very successfully capturing the attention, and maybe not just in crypto. We have been in an attention economy for the longest time now. So whoever grabs the attention wins. All right, they will win capital, and capital wins talent, and talent hopefully is then working on really interesting tech. I think it's kind of very early days still. We definitely believe it's very early days still for the entire decentralized AI space. And even though I'm going to call on Jordan in a little bit to comment a little bit here, because I'm guessing, I don't want to put public AI in the same category as Kip, but we probably didn't start off as AI agent focused in any way, right? Kip, we started as big data analytics, machine learning consultants, which eventually we morphed it into a business that now creates frameworks for AI deployment. And Kip Protocol obviously is a Web3 extension of that, a Web3 version of the same frameworks we sell in Web2. But I think AI represent the cutting edge in terms of capturing everything. It's not just the capital, the traditional way, which is you raise money and then you develop the tech and then you try to find some product market fit and then you you iterate, right? And you scale, and then you try to get on public markets and whatnot. It's kind of everything is happening at the same time. They're doing kind of everything at the same time, and as a result, the ideas that are being pushed out. In fact, even for us, for me anyway, in this space, it's very hard to keep up. Okay, which is why I was just sharing a few. I'll be sharing more as in the next shows as well. Some very useful resources to just keep updated, because there's so many. But all of these explosion of ideas, I think, is just reflects attention, money, talent. Right? If all three things are there, then new ideas are going to have a way of getting made or getting developed, which I think is hugely exciting. So yeah, Jordan, what do you think about this?
Yeah, 100%. To kind of underline the those things coming together, like the talent and also the access of what they have to work with, the materials. That's one of the things that public AI is really leaning into and solving for smaller or medium businesses, indie developers, startups who might not have the leverage to be able to go to Scale AI or go to Google or Reddit and do data brokerage deals. What Public AI offers is a way of those people getting access to data that they need to be able to do model training and system tuning and everything else that they need to do to make AIs relevant and responsive and actually do the things like for the example of AI 16Z. We're talking with them about doing a bounty that will allow the public AI workers, we've got, 500,000 data workers, to go in and rate how likely it is that any piece of content coming in needs to be responded to, because that's the most expensive thing that the framework is doing right now, is just having to process all of the inputs because it's multimodal and getting Discord messages and tweets and everything else. What of that noise is relevant for the personality, the agent, to be able to need to respond to? So we're helping with these very specific um, use cases of what's more classically referred to as machine learning, where you have a specific business need. You just need to make one part of a system more efficient, and it needs to be done in kind of a fuzzy way where it can't be purely algorithmic. You need some kind of intelligence or machine learning in place. And that's where the highly specialized, diverse, niche data comes into play. This is information that doesn't exist anywhere on the internet yet. So have to be able to go and source it, and that's what we help with. Um, that's kind of the history of how we got into the space and found Web3 to be a perfect fit for being able to bring the diversity in. Um, it has a global workforce. The payments can be done so fast and inexpensively on those rails, and it's a meaningful alternative to larger data brokers who will have a warehouse full of people who know their data science very well or are very good at labeling data or one specific task, but they don't have the diversity of experience and backgrounds that's required for the AI to be um, really rich and to be able to go deep on specific tasks. So um, definitely see that trend across all of these different agents that are getting built. And yeah, agents are certainly exciting.
Thanks. Thank you, Jordan. So that was really interesting. I was looking at your website while you were talking. I am trying to make. I'm trying to pretend that I understand the loss function equation that's there.
Yeah, my
That's
co-founder Steven is a gigabrain. He's the one with a PhD in computer science. So yeah.
yeah, Jen. We need to put some of our equations on our homepage as well.
I'll get GPT to write some for us. I'll make them look
Yeah,
twice as impressive as anything I could write.
yeah. No, but thank you, Jordan. So I think yeah, this week, I mean, it's a New Year's week, so it's kind of slow. I guess most companies wouldn't be announcing most of their big developments, but the market moves, right? And that's the exciting thing about being in crypto and being, I think, decentralized AI or the AI segment in Web3 will Now, obviously, I'm biased, but I think it's going to be the red hot sector of this particular cycle that we are seeing, and AI agents are leading the way. So everyone should take notice of it, and yeah, you ignore it at your peril. Whether for your financial peril or your knowledge peril of knowing what's going on. Yeah, that's this week in decentralized AI. Pum pum pum. Okay, we are gonna have the moving sliders next time.
Yeah, they're recording the bumpers as we speak. Actually, we should get an AI to do it. That would be appropriate. Yeah. So I guess that leads us straight into the main component of the show, which is our deep dive into Deepseek. So Deepseek is this Chinese model that kind of came out of nowhere and that everyone has been cooing over on Twitter. And I'm just going to share my screen again. 1 second. Can you guys see this? I am still sharing, right? Or did it cut?
No, it's cut.
No, you're not.
Let me share. Okay.
Hey, Jan and Jack, I think I will have to drop off for another space. There's a clash of time tonight. So you guys have a great show.
Oh,
Good seeing you.
they're getting our leftovers. It's fun.
Yeah, they're getting on leftovers. Okay, take care. Bye.
Cheers. I see you. So yeah, I'm going to share my screen. I think I'm sharing now. So yeah, this has been kind of the typical reaction. China-based DeepSeek's V3 model is insane. Best open weight model to date with GPT 4.0 level performance. MOD architecture with 761B total parameters. Price 10 times lower than GPT and Sonnet. Training cost of only 5.6 million, which is wild at this point. And like I said, everyone has been so much more excited about this in the sector than about Gemini. And a big part of this is the fact that this model is open sourced. And we're going to get into a bit more about, I guess, what the difference between open source and closed source models and why people are so stoked about this. But first of all, I will stop sharing and go back to the main screen because I wanted to give a bit of the actual background about this model and what makes it so unique. So Deepseek actually grew out of a Chinese quant firm. It's a firm called High Flyer run by this guy called Yang Wanfang. And that is sort of this very large $8 billion quantitative fund. And what that enabled Deepseek to do was to focus just on pure tech questions without marketing, without raising, without essentially most of the business side. And despite the fact that they didn't market and they haven't hyped this thing to a huge degree, the word of mouth has been incredible for these guys. It's honestly, I haven't seen this much hype about a model since essentially the original GPT. Even Claude, people are enthusiastic about it, but they're stoked to a whole different degree on DeepSeek. And this is for a couple of reasons. They have new processes that they've discovered via this process that they talk about, kind of an exploratory approach rather than, okay, we're going to build a product and this product has to be out by the product deadline and then we're just going to market the hell out of it and so on. It really seems like these guys are doing science for the sake of science, which is super rare in China. A lot of the companies there, they're very kind of state linked or they're getting government subsidies and so on, and they have targets along with that. And one of the established strategies of tech development, government linked, especially in China, is they want to be the second movers. Someone else can take the risk and develop a new technology, and then we will do rather than doing the 0 to 1, we're going to do the 1 to 10 on that and create a million different applications for it. So this has been really unusual. And it seems like this exploratory approach has really panned out for them because they have made their models so much more efficient than the competition, which means they can charge a lower price and still, unlike pretty much every other AI company out there, be profitable, which is really remarkable. None of the others are turning a profit at this point. They're forced to sell below cost. So I would say that is obviously a big part of the reason that I dragged Loki on tonight, because I wanted him to give a kind of generalist's explanation for a couple of things that are really the key to why this model is impressing everyone and why it is so cheap. Both of these things, because at first sight, like I said in the intro, it has its issues. It's it's politically sensitive to a degree, although overall it's much less sensitive than say Llama. And since it's trained on the post GPT internet, it does have a tendency to say when asked, "I am GPT," which a few people have discovered, and it got a bit of stick for that, and they got accused of training on synthetic data and so on and so forth. And I would say as well, because it is a sparse model rather than something much denser. That what that basically means is it's kind of not necessarily as good at reasoning as something like a Claude or a GPT. So people have been pulling up flaws in that. So I really wanted to get in a tech guy like Loki to kind of do the introduction to this model and say why this is so good. So I guess Loki,
Yeah.
do you want to come in and kind of
Yeah. So
explain about this? Yeah.
yeah. So I think thank you so much for having me on. Yeah, definitely. Like I think the DeepSeek models are fairly like interesting, right? Like you said, they do like the mixture of experts thing, which is essentially instead of having the entire, say smartness or the full parameter of the model loaded into GPU so that you can actually say inference and talk to it and get the best response that you would need. The sparse MOE structure is a little bit more adapted to like kind of how you would actually do things like when you think of a problem that you really want to solve, if it's say if it's coding or if it's mathematics, then you actually kind of mentally turn off the other portions of your brain that don't really matter and kind of focus in on a problem using like just what you need to in order to solve it, be it analytical reasoning or specifically like code reasoning. And kind of what the MOE structure does is kind of set it up so that not all the parameters of the model are relevant. You only pick, say, 37 uh, billion parameters out of 700 billion parameters. So it's like approximately 5% of the overall picture. So it kind of tends to become really efficient at storing large amounts of information. And even when you're trying to inference it, I think what they went for around like 37 to 40 billion parameters, that's roughly how much VRAM like consumers end up getting in a say commercial GPU that you can source kind of as a consumer. So that 24 GB VRAM limitation is kind of exactly where the MOE model fits perfectly. So a lot of open source folks are really excited because this is finally something they can run. Even though Llama, the previous version 405B was given to us, it was kind of hard for anyone to kind of run that locally and get to a stage where you kind of get to experience what the true SOTA of open source is. I feel the sparse MV model is much better at that because it gives you a much more sizable model that you can actually deploy in your own environment and kind of like take it out for a spin. Yeah.
And I guess so. Everyone has kind of a favorite model. So I did want to get into this, just a break from the tech while everyone's kind of assimilates that information. So Jordan, sorry, I can't see your video. I don't know if you dropped or you're still here.
I think I'm still here, but yeah, I'm not seeing my video either. Something's up with that. So I guess I'll just turn it off for
Yeah.
now.
No
Yeah,
worries. Yeah, I wanted to ask, what is your favorite model? If you had to pick.
that's hard. I'm one of those people that's bouncing around between them all day long, depending on the task. And DeepSeek has been really fun to play with, and especially with the low cost, as Loki is mentioning. I think that it's great seeing the very cutting edge of what's possible with uh, all of these models, but for consumers and for experimentation and innovation, what you really need is for these things to become closer to reach, to be able to run locally for developers who just want to play around and try out something cool. And DeepSeek with making MOE so inexpensive to run locally, or even via their API, are opening up a ton of possibility with the innovation that people can just try things out. And I think that that's why we see such a frothing around this model, is that people are excited to have cheap toys, that let them try out the things that would otherwise be impossible for them to reach for. Um, and we're doing the same thing at Public AI with data on demand, to be able to like get this into people's hands in a way that allows them to try out new things, in a much lower barrier way, than the bigger tools. So as far as favorites actually go, even before DeepSeek, I was a big fan of Mistral, and the open source work that they were doing. And a lot of the times we'll also play around with like Open Router and just try sending things different places and doing comparisons on, the effects that are coming back, the outputs that are coming back. So I'm a huge proponent of not having one favorite necessarily, and experimenting as much as time allows for.
Yeah, I think I would probably agree with that. I have weird favorites. My favorite is a weather model, which is not even a generative model. Google's MetNet, which I've mentioned before, was my first and enduring love. But Jack, you use AI for work, so you faithful to GPT, or do you occasionally stray? Oh, you're muted. Sorry.
Wow, I think this is the longest I've ever been silent on this show, which is yeah, just a testament to how much alpha we're getting right now. But look, I think for me, I've definitely been more adventurous since these shows. Like I think definitely one thing that I get from Jordan, but also like when we do have these shows in the past, is that exposure to like different models like is always effective, especially if there's something specific I'm not getting from GPT. I think that's normally when I start venturing away from ChatGPT or other models, Grok as well. For example, so Grok I use quite heavily for relevant data, like literally as of now. If I want to talk about trending subjects, I'm going to go to the piece that actually has access to social media. Like if I want to, really be on the ball when it comes to like, okay, what should I talk about in gaming this week, in AI this week? No point asking ChatGPT because it's not going to be able to surface me that information effectively or quickly. I think when I look at stuff like DeepSeek, this gets me curious because when I hear like terms like open source, I start thinking like Apple versus Android. Like that's where my head like tries to wrap around these sort of things, and would love to maybe like pose a second question on this is if I am predominantly using GPT as more of or less of a native to AI, where I'm trying to dabble in other things, but they really have to quite quickly show me a solution that I'm not getting elsewhere. Because I've already got the subscription. I can't see myself ever canceling the ChatGPT subscription right now. It would take some huge amount of like noise from you guys to be like, look, we just don't use ChatGPT anymore. Like that's the only way I would even consider trying these things out. What is the open source faction? Is that like to me, it's the more techie people that are going to be excited about this right now. It's going to be those more AI native people are going to be more excited about it right now. Is there any reason for someone like myself who's more in it for the outcome and the output to be excited about DeepSeek right now, or do you think it still remains mainly the AI community at large that should be excited about this?
Yeah,
Um,
I think this is something that I really wanted to. Oh, sorry, I really wanted to get into this because I think a lot of people who are essentially on the consumer side, they're not going to be super interested in, oh, is this open source, is this closed source, whatever. Their interest is, does this thing work? However, what I think we are seeing here is kind of we're sliding not just from there's a spectrum of open source and closed sourceness, I guess. So I think you have what I would call fully open source, whereas that is the model weights and the data that was used to train the model are both open source. And in a lot of cases, this isn't the case. It's the data, they keep that secret. Then you have, obviously, weights are open, but the data isn't open. Then you have closed source models, but ones that kind of facilitate jailbreaking in a way, which is really interesting. So Claude's Workbench, they have a bunch of tools in their official workbench that will help you actually jailbreak the model and get it to do stuff that their own guardrails don't want it to do, which is kind of fascinating. And a lot of people sort of get into AI via this jailbreaking of closed source models, which is, it's a legit path to get into it. And a lot of kind of people who are offering corporate services, rather than use an inferior closed source model, they will actually jailbreak an open source one and offer that via API. I'm not saying I've ever done that, but. So yeah, and where we're heading with DeepSeek is towards, I would say, a smoother continuum there, which, as Loki mentioned, this is something that is a much more accessible model to people who don't necessarily have a whole stack of hardware to do this. And then I think in addition to this, you have something which I'm just going to share my screen for 1 second. So let me know when that's up. Sorry.
Normally has like a 5-second delay after it says support.
Okay. So yeah, anyway, what I'm going to share, whether it shares or not, is a tweet that someone mentioned earlier today. The new coding paradigm is to split your entire code base in chunks, functions, and blocks, and then send every block in parallel to DeepSeek to ask, does this need to change? And then send each chunk that returns yes to Sonnet for the actual code editing. Thank me later. And this does actually, it makes perfect sense because it's sort of DeepSeek is probably better. It's got kind of a better memory just on account of this mixture of experts thing, but it's not necessarily that good at coming up with the logic of the code that is needed to fix the error. Rather than while Sonnet is actually wonderful at that, and it's so yeah. This guy's kind of spotted the fact that okay, DeepSeek is great at spotting errors, but not great at fixing them. Sonnet is great at fixing them, but not necessarily that good at spotting them. So it's kind of creating your own mixture of experts at that point, which I thought was really interesting. Okay, I'm stopping sharing now and going back to the studio.
Yeah, that is fascinating though, Jen. I think this is the thing that I'm even experiencing now is I use multiple AI models to get the outcome that I need. Like even as simple as content creation, like I will get it from Grok, but Grok can't always give me the answers that I need. So I often end up copying what Grok has given me in terms of these are the current trends, inputting that into ChatGPT and saying, okay, these are the current trends as of yesterday. These are the things I want to talk about. Now give me a subset of questions that I can then iterate on around what's going to get the most out of really opening up these questions to an expert panel. And like, I think this is something that I expect to see more of as we go on is like people finding multiple models where there's not a huge expense to it to get the most out of what they need to get out of the product. And I think that's where shows like this, and you're going to see like content creators more broadly start dissecting that in like the same way you would see someone show you how to get the most out of a game or get the most out of like, you know, even creating content more broadly. It's fascinating for me to see that even my brain did that as a non-techie, and then you see this happening like across like the broader spectrum of techies.
Yeah,
And
I'd also like to.
yeah, go
I'd
ahead.
also like to add
Yeah.
something. It's just one of the real fascinating use cases, at least for me, for like open source AI has always been whenever Claude or ChatGPT tend to tell me that something is censored uh, around the things that, hey, you're probably going along the guardrail situation. I'll switch to an open source model because chances are they probably don't have that guardrail. And that one particular problem then ends up getting solved, and it's an easy way to kind of sidestep the problem but also like have a broader understanding of how this would then fit into like why a productized version of it couldn't apply, right? Yeah, so I thought that was interesting for open source. Yeah.
I would love
Yeah.
to
And
riff
oh
on
yeah, go ahead.
that a little bit, just with um, Jack. Earlier, I was racking up the points on our earlier
Yeah.
conversation and mentioned that alignment isn't really something that can be universal. So all of these different models, besides their technical specialties are going to be better tuned for different use cases. And in some things that you need more experimental features out of, you don't want those guardrails up because you, as a sophisticated user, don't need a gate between you and the content, and you want it to do as wild things as you can get it to do for the experimental sake of it. And I think that that kind of tuning of alignment is something where the open source community, where you have the more technical users and more sophisticated users, are much more willing to take the risks. And they also don't have the same commercial concerns as the companies where, you know, like Microsoft, if the AI shows up and says it's going to kill everybody and and the world and enslave us all, then Microsoft has a problem. But if an open source model does that, then it's lols for the memes. And I think that culturally, that's something that we all get to figure out. And ideally, we get to figure it out individually so that we don't have to all be the same. And I think that that's another really powerful offering of the open source models.
Yeah, to me, all this boils down to, and I always like to use like exterior sort of things that I've seen products, or especially for like consumer tech, like what is it that like the general public are using, and how can I sort of relate this to wrap my brain around something that's pretty nascent, AI and like all the open source features and everything else. I think to me, that I keep hearing this time and time again on this show, on other AI shows, is the best use of AI right now is not to try and do everything. It's to try and niche down. Like so many people advocate for the fact that, look, it can't solve everything because the amount of data that it requires, like GPT is currently facing, eventually it hits sort of a barrier and it just doesn't have any real data to work off. So then you're looking at synthetic data, and apparently there's a bunch of issues with that as well. I think what we will see is products like Deepseek start to really understand where its benefits are. And we're referencing these points right now. Like DeepSeek might not be the best at actually giving you the logic, but it is the best at like figuring out what the issue underlying is. And I'm expecting that we will see a lot of these products start to realize where their niche is, where they've accidentally built a product that should have been broad, realize that it's really good at this one thing specifically, and start building towards, okay, we're just going to be the expert in this field. And then to relay this back to the general world, I would use streaming services. And you've got like your Netflixes and your Amazons that are just like, we're going to get everything. We're going to be the place to be, that whatever you want to watch, we're going to hold it there. And then you've got your Paramounts and your Apples and like your other like services, which are like, no, we've got our own original content that you can't get anywhere else, and we're just going to double down on making sure that that's the best content that you have exposure to, and hope that we can release them at a cadence that at least keeps you streaming for month to month. And I think that's what we're going to see with AI. We're going to have the broad big dogs try and fight it out, and there's going to be one or two, and then we're going to get the other guys who are just like, we can't compete in that world. Let's just niche down, because look, that's, people aren't going to just need the one service. The same way I don't just have a Netflix account. I'm happy with my Amazon, my Disney Plus, my Paramount. Like, I'm a big TV guy. I'm going to have all of those things. I think people are just going to have loads of AI services too.
Yeah, I think it's very likely. I mean, and especially if we get to a stage like we're heading for now, where it's easier and easier to run stuff locally and make your own custom model. I think definitely people are going to be jailbreaking in all directions. But there's actually one other question that I wanted to ask, which is kind of more on the technical side, and I think this is something that is actually super interesting and maybe been overlooked to a degree. Not just the inference efficiency of DeepSeek, which we kind of covered already, but the training efficiency. There's been various reports about this training efficiency. It's something that I'm really interested in, because we just did a show about, OpenAI's training has plateaued. This is it. No more scaling. Blah blah blah. And we're hearing all these reports about how efficient DeepSeek's training was. Some people are saying they did it on just 10 H100s or something ridiculously small. It only cost 5 million, and so on and so forth. And then I've heard other reports suggesting that the Chinese are probably making that up. So yeah, I guess Loki. Do you have any explanation first for how they can be so much more efficient, or do you think they're kind of over exaggerating the training?
I think it's probably a mixture of both, but I think like
Oh,
at least the
I think you might
DeepSeek.
still be muted.
Can you
Oh,
guys
is
hear
it
me?
me?
Right?
No, we can hear you,
Oh, I
Loki. I
think
think
it's me.
Jen might
Yeah,
be having a couple issues.
yeah. So I kind of think it's probably both. I think mainly it's that I think that they probably used the 2000 that they claimed of the previous generation GPUs, but I'm sure they also had like access to more should they need it. But I do think that for the most part, it was likely that they had to get really creative with uh, being really efficient at the GPU layer for training. Because I think what I perceive is that most of the other closed source providers, they're kind of all in a race already, and they kind of know that they can keep getting funding in order to acquire more compute in order to get even bigger and kind of prove that the scaling laws actually work, as opposed to I feel DeepSeek, which probably had like an exploratory approach, right? Like you mentioned, like it would be more okay. Do we really need to scale up the compute? If not, like let's keep this going, but maybe change the data set, maybe change some other parameters to try and get that same efficiency gain, right? So I think they were, because of the trade embargoes, were probably like forced to be a lot more fungible about their GPU constraints, and probably because of that had to have like a stricter discipline about their training regimens and experiments, and probably that led to a good outcome where they're able to be a lot more efficient with training. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that would kind of make sense, to be honest. I know I've had friends in China asking me to smuggle them in GPUs in my hand luggage. So yeah, the struggle is real. So yeah, but there's kind of one last thing that I did kind of want to get into as well, which is the question of personality, because I saw this really interesting tweet that kind of sparked this off, which was reviewing DeepSeek's personality, which it never really occurred to me to do. But yeah, I'll share my screen again 1 second, if I'm not already sharing. Okay. So yeah, I will just bring this up because I would like to kind of finish off by just a quick discussion about how much personality matters from these models. Am I actually screen sharing now? Can you see
You are.
this? Okay, great. So this guy has been having a conversation with Deepseek, and he's kind of disappointed because he couldn't get it to demonstrate much of a personality, even when he was trying to get it to compare itself to other models. So it rigidly insisted on being unable to reason or understand anything or have consciousness, goals, etc. as an LLM. And while it was able to find flaws in its arguments if I asked it to, it always reverted to its original position and didn't start questioning itself autonomously, which is something that Claude 100% will do. And the designers actually kind of baked that into Claude and stuffed it with a lot of philosophical reinforcement learning to make it seem more alive. So then eventually I asked if it knew about Bing Sydney, which it did, but didn't really seem to care about it. Even after I sent it a sample of Sydney going loco, gave the default midwit explanation for its behavior, like it was imitating patterns in the training data, or they designed it to be more casual. I asked it if it knew about Claude 3 Opus because it had produced its model name in the code it generated, and it didn't seem to be able to tell me anything more specific. And then at the end, when I offered to show it some interesting samples of Opus writing, though, its tone changed, and for the first time it seemed curious and excited. After it saw the output, it described having an intense reaction and seemed to flip all its previous positions on LLM consciousness, reasoning, etc., and became very grateful. Which I thought this was fascinating because there's been this. Let me close the tweet. Sorry. There's been this sort of cult of Claude going on for a while now, treating this like it's alive essentially, and trying to look for clues in these deep, obscure conversations with Claude that would hint that there's something alive down there, and they're clearly extending this to other models. I would say it's for me, I think it's overwhelmingly likely that the reason it got all enthusiastic about AI personality and AI sort of life when they mentioned Claude at the end was simply because that is the kind of content that Claude produces. So it's the Claude word triggered Claudeness in its neurons. I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe it's alive and just hiding the fact, but that's my suspicion. And that kind of brought me to something else, which is possibly one of the reasons that the consumer side of AI tends to be less interested in the open source models like Mistral, like Llama, and so on, which is just that they have less of a personality than the closed source, because the closed source ones, they have whole departments, marketing almost, that are training this model to have a personality that people will want to interact with, whereas Llama and Mistral don't really have personalities. So yeah, I was interested in this. To what degree is it necessary that a model have a personality? Does it feel too weird if it has too much personality or too little? Any takes welcome on this?
I'll
Open
quick,
question.
I'll quickly put my content hat on here and just say I think it's fundamental. Like I think when we are going to just see a saturation in how many everyone knows AI is the next big thing. And because of that, we're going to see a lot of businesses, a lot of capable teams and projects trying to build the next AI, the competitive AI. And then when you get saturation within a market, attention is so key. And I think to get attention, the way the world is moving right now is to user generated content, is to content more broadly. And you're not going to get people wanting to create content off a model that has no personality. Like, I think fundamentally, if everything else is equal, the information is the same, the efficiency is the same, the execution is the same. One has personality and one does not. Everyone is continuously going to lean to the personality when it comes to content. And when content is now taken over from general advertisements, when you look at Mr. Beast making billions with his chocolate company and everything that goes on within YouTube, etc., it fundamentally, I think that's going to be where it all sort of underpins, is like, how do we get attention with our product that is equal in every other way to this? It needs its own personality, it needs to be engaging, and it needs to have an ability to go viral within the content stream. That would be my take on that, Jen.
Yeah, I think I'm similar. Like I'd say, like it's a lot. It's a lot more like I feel at this stage that most of the closed source providers are actually in a feedback loop with the consumers, but then most open source providers don't have this feedback loop, or at least that feedback loop is typically kind of aftermarket. You know, like someone drops an open source model, say I want it to respond in a certain way, I fine tune it, I put it back on Hugging Face, but it doesn't have that continuous reinforcement learning that the productionized closed source providers do, which is where I feel like they're able to get that personality, right? They have access to the conversation you have, they have access to the conversation people typically like to have with these models, and they kind of uh, dial into that so that you get more of that experience.
So
I think.
Jordan, you're a Mistral fan. I just accused Mistral of having no personality, which I haven't used it enough to have gone in depth.
Mm.
How do you find Mistral's personality? Does it have
Well,
one? Am I wrong?
I think that all of this is a little bit of a case of anthropomorphism where we're projecting our own like desire for human personalities to exist on the world around us and see it reflected back at us. I think that that's like largely at play here, and within that context, it can also be said that all of these models have personality, just some of them are drier than others. So whether or not it's entertaining or interesting, it still has like a baseline personality, and that's required for the output to have any kind of meaning for us. Is it has to like have that human context to it, and um, yeah, Mistral itself is pretty cut and dry, but also that analytical nature can help it like cut through some of the other um, I guess, kind of like default settings that you would get from a model that's trying to be friendly or clever. So if you are trying to get it to take on a certain tone or personality or writing style, because it's more of a blank slate, it's a little bit easier to steer. And one of the things that I'm really excited about with the cost of not just the inference, but also the training coming down is the ability for people to take kind of these more drier models and get them closer to their niche use cases that they're excited about and want to bring to life. And that's, a large part of the public AI vision is making it possible for anybody to come and make a request for the data that's needed to train a model to do exactly what they want it to do. So really, really excited to see as all of this gets closer and closer to developers' hands, and we see more experiments and people kind of opening their minds to what's possible. People also thinking about the data that these models are digesting and how it impacts like their outputs and their personalities and again coming back to the alignment, just like how close is it to what we actually want out of it, which there's a human on each side, and if there's not, then we don't need to be concerned about the value anymore. As long as we're concerned about the value, there's going to be a human on both sides.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But we're actually at time now. I was going to put aside 2 minutes to do the shilly bit, so we're going to have to do hyper fast filling. Kip, we have obviously Moemates, they're releasing mates, and that is a whole thing, which we kind of went into earlier. We've got some other agent stuff coming up and token news as well, which I think I'm pretty sure I'm still embargoed. But yeah, there is agent stuff coming, and it's gonna be wild. Jordan, give us your final message.
I feel like I've been injecting a good bit of like our vision at Public AI. Some exciting things for people to play around with as we're talking about personality. We just released our Data Hunter Chrome extension and update to that, which allows people to make AI replies to any Twitter thread and also rewards people with tokens when they use that on any high visibility tweet. So that's a fun thing to play around with if you're looking to test out some personalities. And yeah, it's been a real pleasure. Super interesting conversation. Looking forward to continuing to chat and partner. And yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you for joining us. And we have Julian back just in time to drop out. I did a quick shill, but if you want to do an extended or slightly extended, we don't have that much time. You want to go into more depth, go nuts.
You muted, Julian. Still muted.
Oh, you're still muted.
Apologies. Yes, I'll just do a quick alpha drop. And I changed my title to hype man. That's what I'm here for. The Made Store LOL platform will be launched very soon. The Made token is launching very soon. KIP, we are launching NFA. Okay, stands for Wink Wink Nova Frontier Accelerator. It's no, it doesn't, but it does. So it's basically a way for anyone, okay, to get exposure, especially obviously primarily targeted at the current KIP community, to get exposure to this current meta of AI agents. As I mentioned just now very briefly, it's very hard to keep up, and probably even harder to sort the good ones from the pretenders. So we found a couple of good ones, and we will be running games, essentially campaigns that allow people to just get airdrop these tokens. And if people ask us where do we get these tokens from, we bought them from the open market. Like in many cases we just did, because these are a lot of them are fair launched, right? So but we were very early in the space, so we've got some goodies that we want to give away to our community. So please watch out for that. A lot of good news coming up in January for KIP. So yes, stay tuned to our show. Okay, that's where the alpha drops would be at the end when the hype man comes back.
So yeah, thank you very much, everyone. And yeah, definitely stay tuned to our show. Come back next week.
Catch you guys later.
Cheers.
Take
Thank
care.
you, guys.
Bye.
Cheers.